The impacts are widespread, from rising sea levels to drought to increased flooding to the increased populations of ticks and other insects that carry diseases. Climate change, anthropogenic, human-caused climate change, is a result of our burning of fossil fuels and other pollutants that, other fuels that result in the emission of greenhouse gas emissions, which trap heat in the atmosphere and warm our climate.
Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small number of people can make a difference, because indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Long Island Progressive Coalition is a multi-issue, grassroots, citizen-run organization. We've been around for over 39 years. And so we've worked on so many different issues. Start off early on like unemployment insurance, expanding that for the whole nation. Now we work on things like affordable housing, clean energy, all these different campaigns, that really improve people's lives basically. And it started on the eve of the Reagan administration, when the political tides were changing. And we've always looked at the national scene and what's going on, and really people wanted a voice, and that's what it was about.
When I retired, I had a little bit more time on my hands, and I did a little bit of research, and I found that LIPC was really the organization that was really at the, really at the point of progressive organizing on Long Island.
We are organizers, we're not advocates. We don't advocate for other people, we organize them to control their own lives and take power in their own lives. That's how we're different. We also have a campaign called New York Renews. We're trying to pass New York state legislation for climate. It's critical when we look at the future and what's happening. How do we make an impact? How can we have New York lead? And that's what this legislation does.
So New York Renews is really an unprecedented statewide coalition of over 140 organizations, from labor unions to environmental justice groups to faith and other community groups, looking to pass comprehensive climate equity legislation in New York State. And the Long Island Progressive Coalition, given our long history of working on climate and energy and environmental issues on Long Island, started to join the statewide effort a couple months into its formation.
Mother Nature has a way of correcting itself, and that's what it's trying to do now. So with these drastic changes in the climate and these superstorms that we're getting now, it's Mother Nature telling us, hey, I gotta readjust here.
New York Renews has a very wide-ranging view of the problem that includes the impacts on disadvantaged communities, and that's what I like about working with New York Renews.
So the structure of our economy in the United States and globally is really a consumptive economy, an economy that is extractive, that extracts people's labor, extracts natural resources, rather than taking advantage of the renewable and sustainable sources that are provided freely to us on a daily basis from the sun and the wind and the water. Some of the policies that we're really fighting for is part of this larger narrative of how do we move from an extractive economy to a more regenerative economy. So one of the main pillars of our policy work is through the Climate and Community Protection Act. What that would do would put into law our stated goals to get to 100% renewable energy economy-wide by 2050. But it would also ensure that moving forward, 40% of all state-funded energy projects go to environmental justice communities. These are traditionally low-income communities of color who have borne the brunt of environmental degradation and who are most severely impacted by climate change. The policy would also ensure that moving forward, all state-funded energy projects would have prevailing wage standards to incentivize unionized labor and to incentivize, good middle-class jobs in the renewable energy economy. We have the entrenchment of fossil fuel CEOs and executives on our political system who benefit entirely from a system that relies on these dirty sources of energy. And that's really why New Yorker News is trying to hold corporate polluters accountable with this fee on climate pollution, understanding that these companies are most responsible for that. And our policies should extract the wealth that they have benefited from and give it to communities that have borne the brunt of their reckless decisions.
What we've been working on here on Long Island is putting pressure on 3 state senators to support the Climate and Community Protection Act. So we mounted phone banks which were targeting actually my state senator, Elaine Phillips, in the 7th district.
Watching everyone make all the phone calls for Senator Elaine Phillips and getting her on board, I know after a few tough weeks of calling and just hearing everyone talk about calling those people back and hearing how happy they were that she had signed on to it. I mean, doesn't get any better than that.
If you knew someone interested in social change but they didn't think they could make a difference, what would you say to them?
I would say nonsense. You definitely can make a difference.
Even if you're alone, you can make a difference. As I stated before, even if you're in a crowd of 1,000 folks and you could change one person's mind, I think it's a home run, because that one person may change somebody else's opinion.
My advice to them would be what I finally had to sit down and do with myself, which was to just pick one. And that's not to say that that one issue you pick is more important than any of the other ones, but it's the one that fits into your life and you feel you can really sink your teeth into.
You feel the passion about something, and sometimes it often starts with a tragedy, like it did for me with Superstorm Sandy. It's amazing what one person can do and how that can just accelerate and really be the basis for some great change.
I think a lot of times people kind of ignore the fact that these issues affect them, or that they're really being impacted, or that their children are going to be impacted.
But I think once people get involved, everyone has something to offer.
It's really up to you. If you want to make a difference, there are ways to make a difference, but you got to be willing to get off the sidelines. For so many of us, the easy thing to do is to fall in despair, and it's very, very easy to give up. But you know what? Giving up never got anyone anywhere.
So I would say to that person, yes, you can make an impact. Definitely. Don't think you can't.